Hi guys, this is our first lesson for the new year. So we are doing ratios and proportions today. The notes should not take that long. After you finish with the notes or after I am done with Zoom, you are free to work on the homework that is on Canvas. So this is definitely something that you want to write down. The definition of a ratio is a comparison of two quantities by division written. You can use any of these three different ways. It does not matter to me which one you choose. If it's in a fraction, obviously you need to reduce it or simplify it as much as you can. And whichever value or whichever number is listed first in the question is the A, which will make some sense here in a second. So again, as usual, if you guys are struggling to keep up, just pause the video. You can always go back and re-watch it, or, if you're behind, that's perfectly fine. You're working at this video on your own time, so just pause it and move and wait until you're ready to move on. Okay, so obviously I don't have the class up here because I'm doing this video independently, so I'm just going to relate it to my second period class, which I already taught to. So there were 3 staff, so because staff comes first, then students, this is first, this is second. The staff number, which was 3 in my second period class, to the students was 3 to 21. So, you can write it in these 3 different ways if you'd like. Most of you will see that and be like, wait, I can divide 21 by 3. So if you wrote any of these 3 answers like first, that's perfectly fine. Like, we're just learning this. This isn't something that you're going to get exactly right away. But on tests or quizzes and stuff, I would expect that you simplify that. So if I go ahead and divide 3 by 3 and 21 by 3, my final answer would be 1 over 7, which would, you could have it 1 to 7 or 1 to 7. For number 2, again, I'm just going to relate all these first 4 questions to my second period class that I already taught this lesson to. So what is the ratio of the total number of left-handed students? So in my second period class, I only had 2 left-handed students to the total number of students. So there was only 21 students in my second period class. So this would be your ratio there, 2 to 21. And that cannot be reduced, so you would just leave it like that. What is the ratio of students wearing long sleeves to the number of students wearing short sleeves? So I believe in my second period class I had 4 kids that were wearing long sleeves. And because there were only 21 students, that meant that 17 kids were wearing short sleeves. And again, this is something that cannot be reduced. So those could be your 3 possible answers. And you can write it in any way you choose. I usually do the fraction just because I'm a math teacher and that's easier for me. But it is up to you what you would like to do. If you took the ratio from problem number 2, which was 2 to 21, and extended it to the whole school of 1,800 students, how many students would you expect to be left-handed? So there are a couple different ways that you could do this. So if I know that I need to have some number out of 1,800 students, okay, you could do something called, I'm sorry, my dogs are barking, give me a second here. I could do something called cross multiplication. Oh, buddy. I could think about, okay, what is 1800 divided by 21? And then I'd get like some weird number, and then I'd want to multiply 2 by that number. Let's see if I divide it out. Hold on a second, I gotta pull up my calculator. If I do 1800 divided by 21, I would get like 85.7 something. Okay, so I would want to multiply 2 by 85.7. Which gives me approximately 171.4, which would mean 171 students would possibly be left-handed in our school or a school of 1,800 students. So number 5 is a little different because they actually give us the information. So a Ford Model A is 165 inches long. A replica of the Model A is 15 inches long. Okay, so we're trying to figure out the ratio of the replica to the actual vehicle. So the replica is being first, which was 15 inches. The actual vehicle is last, so that's 165 inches. So that is how you would set it up. Now again, you can write it like this if you choose to. But me looking at that number, I know that 15 and 165 are both divisible by 5. So I'm going to go ahead and do 15 divided by 15 is 1. 165 divided by 15 is 11. So technically my ratio is 1 to 11, which means that for every 1 inch on the replica, that represents 11 inches on the actual vehicle. Okay, so for B, now we're talking about the height, but given the information above, we already know that the ratio is 1 to 11. So if my ratio is 1 to 11, and I'm trying to figure out a height with 10 inches, what is the actual vehicle's height? I know 1 times 10 equals 10, so I need to do 11 times 10 to get 110 inches for the height. And that is just using the ratio that we find out in that first question in order to find out what the height is. Okay, so this is something that you definitely need to get written down on your paper or on your notes. So we have 3 different properties here. We have the property where we write the reciprocal of each ratio. So A over B equals C over D is equivalent to, which means equal to, B over A, we just flip the first fraction, equals D over C. We flip the second fraction. So again, how to apply it, you're writing the reciprocal of each ratio. Reciprocal is you're just flipping that fraction. For the second property, A over B equals C over D, and it is equivalent to A over C equals B over D. So basically for this one, we are just switching those means. They call those the means. Number 3, A over B equals C over D is equivalent to A plus B over B equals C plus D over D. So in each of these ratios, we are adding the denominator to the numerator. So no matter what, your denominator is sticking with the numerator that it was given. So 2 over 3 equals 4 over 6 becomes, we're just adding the denominator for both fractions. And obviously, you'd probably want to simplify that and say 5 over 3 is equal to 10 over 6. Okay, so that being said, this is our initial equivalence statement. So if I have B over A, I did the reciprocal, so I need to do the reciprocal of the second fraction. 8, 4A equals, so I took my numerator in the first one, my denominator in the second one, so I need to do the same thing. Numerator in the second one, denominator in the first one. 4A equals 3B. And that is something that we will get to here in a second, called cross multiplying. 9, my second one, I am using the denominator of both of my fractions. So if those are both the denominators, then I need to use both the numerators of the fractions. For number 10, so this one's a little tricky. If you think about this, my original fraction was 3 over 4. How can I get from 3 to 7? I added the denominator on for this one. So if I'm doing it to the one side, I'm going to have to do it to the other. So a plus b over b would be the answer that goes here. For 11, it's the same thing. You're adding the denominator. So if I take my original fraction and I am adding the denominator, you could have this as an answer, or you could simplify it and do 7 over 4. For 12, our denominators are going to the numerators, so that means my numerators need to go to the denominators. Okay, on to the next. So cross products property, which we call cross multiply or cross multiplication. I would highly suggest you write that down so that you know what I'm talking about. In a proportion, the product of the extremes, which are the red ones, equals the product of the means, which are the blue ones. Neither of your fractions can have a 0 in the denominator. And when we multiply those, product means multiply. So we have AD equals BC. So for example, you guys probably have seen this in Algebra 1 or Algebra 2. We are taking 2 times 6 and setting it equal to 3 times 4. Just to check and show you guys that this property is true. 2 times 6 equals 12 and 3 times 4 equals 12. So we can apply this to solving for variables now as well. So for 13, I went ahead and highlighted the different pieces here just so it's a little easier for you to realize which goes together. Sometimes I'll circle it, sometimes I'll highlight it, but if that's easier for you to understand the question, I would highly suggest you do that. So we are, for these ones specifically, we don't have to use parentheses, but, and it doesn't matter which one we start with. So I have 15 times x, which is 15x, and 3 times 10, which is 30. If you need to write it out as 3 parentheses 10, that's fine, but you should be able to do that in your head. So to solve for x then, we divide both sides by 15, we would get x equals 2. For 14, it's the same way. You're just taking the two things, you're multiplying them together. 5 times y is 5y, 10 times 2 is 20. And then you'd solve like you normally do. Divide both sides by 5, y equals 4. 15, so we have 30m equals, now 20 times 120 might be a little hard for you to just do in your head, so you might want to write this step out, or you could just go straight to your answer. Doesn't matter to me, just as long as you have those steps there. Then to get m by itself, I divide both sides by 30, and I get m equals 80. Notice how I usually put the variable first. I do that just because I think it's easier in the long run because you don't have to move the variables over then. I like having the variable first because that's usually how you read like an answer. You don't say 2 equals x, you say x equals 2. Okay, then for 16, this is where we want to do the parentheses for sure because we're adding in bigger expressions here. So I have, and again, it doesn't matter what order you put it in. It's not going to make a difference so long as you do your math correctly. So like this one, I did the blue one first, and then for 17, I'll do the yellow one first, and I'll show you it doesn't make a difference. So with parentheses, that means we have to distribute. You guys got to remember that. 4 times x is 4x, 4 times 5 is 20, 16 times x is 16x, and then 16 times 2 is 32. Then we'd want to solve. So I always bring my x's to one side first, and then I bring my constants to the other. So again, it does not matter which way you do this. You're going to get this correct answer as long as your math is correct. So 4 minus 16x would be negative 12x. And then I am going to subtract 20 from both sides. So I get negative 12x equals 12. Divide both sides by negative 12. I get x equals negative 1. Then for 17, same kind of thing here. I started with blue for the first one, so I'll start with the yellow for this one. So 15 times y minus 2 equals 3 times y, which is just 3y. I'm going to distribute that 15 in. So 15 times y is 15y. 15 minus 2 is negative 30. Or sorry, 15 times negative 2 is negative 30. So here is, where you don't need to do a lot of movement. Even though the y's are going to be negative on one side, it's fine. You'll still get the correct answer as long as you do your math right. So I have negative 30 equals 3 minus 15y is negative 12y. And then you would divide both sides by negative 12. When I do that, I end up getting positive 2.5, or you could leave it as 5 over 2 equals y. Either one of those answers works. It does not matter to me which one you choose. Yeah. For 18, so I have 3 times y minus 3 equals 2y. Again, distribute in that 3, so we have 3y minus 9 equals 2y. I'm going to subtract 3y from both sides. I'd get negative 9 equals negative y, or negative 1y. Divide both sides by negative 1, you get 9 equals y. Again, if I'm going too fast for you, just go ahead and pause it and work at your own pace. That's the purpose of the video. For you guys that are a little overwhelmed by how fast I go, take your time. This is your opportunity to do so. These two, 11 or this slide and the next slide, I only did these two because they're on your homework. There is not a spot for it on your notes, but you are more than welcome to just write it on your notes. So if they're asking us to find BC over DE, BC is right here. So we're just finding the length of that, which would be 1. And then DE is 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3. So the ratio for BC over DE would be 1 over 3. So you're just counting the tick marks in between the letters to do those. For this one, so this sometimes is a little bit hard for you guys to understand when it's written left to right like that. So I would write it like this instead. MN over MO equals 3 over 4. So now I'm going to do this. So MN is the same thing as 3, and then MO is the same thing as 4. So MN is this one here. MO is this one here. So we can use the cross multiplication to help us get our answer here. So we know that MN is 3, MO is 4. And then if we want to figure out what X is, MN, which was blue, is 9. MO, which is yellow, was X. And then we can just cross multiply. We get 3X equals 36. And then divide both sides by 3 and get X equals 12. If you guys have any questions on anything, feel free to email me or send me a chat in Zoom. And make sure to get your homework done. Have a great day, guys. Bye.